Hello and welcome to the Sugar Coated Marketing Podcast, where you get sweet advice on how to improve your marketing and grow your business. I am David Paris, your host, and in this podcast series, I interview top experts who give advice on the subjects of marketing, copywriting, advertising, and we even throw in a hint of self-development. Today we have an incredible interview lined up with Mary Shakun. Mary is a consultant to Fortune 500 CEOs, and she shares with us today how to get clients that pay you $1 million or more per year, as well as how to take your business to the next level by overcoming your fears. Mary, for those that don't know you, why don't you give a brief background of what you do and how you ended up coaching the people that you coach?
Well, that's a very interesting question, David. I would call myself an accidental coach, as an accident, ACCIDENT, that kind of a coach, as I fell into it by accident. About 8 years ago, I was flat broke and I was out in the Persian Gulf and I had an opportunity to present a workshop. And after that workshop, a young man who was an investment banker came up to me and asked me if I did executive coaching. And I said, yes, I can do that. And I said, what's your problem? He said, I'm a 50-year associate and I want to be a partner in my 7th year at this investment bank. But my annual review suggests I might not even have a job after a month. And can you help me reverse that? And can you help me become a partner rather? And I had never done this. I had never done this kind of coaching formally for money. I had been the informal coach within the corporation, so to speak. So I said, yes, I can coach you. And he said, when can we start? And this was before he even asked me how much I was going to charge. And I said, we can start in 10 days, as I had just arrived and I needed to give myself some time to recover from jet lag. But it wasn't, that's what I told him, but actually what I needed to give myself some time to was to put a program together because I didn't have a program. And then I said, well, we could start in 10 days, a week from Monday. And he says, wonderful. And then he says, how much do you charge? And I curled my toes in my shoes and I said, $1 million for a 10-month program. He scratched his head, turned around, looked up to the sky and down. He said, no worries, give me your bank details and I'll wire the money to your bank account. And that was how I got my first $1 million client. And then he referred me onwards to 2 more, and they referred me onwards and so on, until I had 23 clients who paid me $1 million each for a 10-month coaching package. No one ever asked for their money back. And in the beginning, I did offer a 30-day refund, but I don't do that anymore as it's a commitment. And you either make the commitment to work it, to do the work or not. And so these days I'm doing $1 million plus coaching, which is very exciting. And this more or less has to do I would say the main topic of my latest coaching gig is helping CEOs and leaders get rid of fear. Mm-hmm. Because it is fear that has brought down corporations. It is the fear that has undone leaders and CEOs. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing at the moment. And starting in January, I will be offering a course. It will probably be a 7 or 8 week course, followed by a monthly mastermind. So there will be one payment for the course and an additional payment for the mastermind.
Now, Mary, regarding fear, I think fear is something that everyone struggles with at one point or another. And to quote Elon Musk, being an entrepreneur is like staring into the abyss and eating glass. So no one is really immune to fear per se, but there are some people that are able to overcome fear and there are others that aren't. And what I'd like to ask you is, why do you think that happens? What's different between those two types of people? Oftentimes, you'll even see some people come from a similar background or very similar circumstances, and one is able to do much better than the other. But I mean, do you think that there's one thing or a few things why, or what's your take on that?
There are many things. I think some people just have some people have enough experience. You know, you get to a point in your life where you've had some trauma and tragedy, and you rise above it, and you become fearless. Like myself, I'm pretty fearless now, but I wasn't always like that. I used to have a lot of fear. And then you have other people who are terrified to go and talk to their boss and ask them for a raise for fear of rejection. But let's back up a moment. I mean, what is fear in the first place? Fear is just an emotion that's triggered by something that poses a threat. You know, so you could think of a spider. Some people are terrified of spiders. Others are terrified of rats. And others, you know, it's said that people would rather die than speak in public. But from my experience, David, and I deal mostly with leaders and CEOs, entrepreneurs, global icons, I think that in the workplace, fear is, how shall I say, high performance creativity is impossible in the workplace when people are afraid to tell the truth. And that goes for CEOs, senior management, as well as the guy who sweeps the floor or delivers the coffee. In the workplace, fear, it presents itself rather, as people afraid to speak up on their own behalf, or they're afraid to voice their opinion for fear of adverse repercussions, either being demoted, not getting a bonus, or maybe even losing your job. From my experience, 70% of managers and CEOs are filled with fear. On the one hand, CEOs are such, you know, their personalities are such that they're able to mask the fear and keep it hidden from their staff, while junior employees are not able to do that. And fear causes, you know, fear in the workplace or fear in any situation, it causes people to lie. It causes people to be revengeful. It causes people to go against the grain. You know, how should I say, when people are afraid, they won't admit their mistakes. They tell lies. And they tend to, you know, to seek revenge. In many instances, they go and seek revenge. And to turn this around, you know, CEOs, they absolutely must learn how to drive fear out of the workplace.
Absolutely. And there seems to be an overbearing theme globally where there is a lack of clarity on what is expected of employees and what they're supposed to do, and a lack of transparency from the companies and from, you know, their mission and their goal. If your employees don't know what your mission is, you don't have the right tool to do the jobs, and you don't know what exactly is expected of you, I could definitely see how that could cause fear. Is that something you've seen or come across in your coaching?
Absolutely. I mean, for example, everything starts from the head down, and you know, whether it's a startup, an old company, a Fortune 500 company, the CEO is the head, and he must set the example. And if the CEO has a lot of fear, and they have a fear of being discovered as an imposter, or they're not able to affect their will, nobody listens to them and nobody respects them, then they're in trouble. You know, especially men. For men in particular, their biggest fear is that they can't get it up, and then that they can't keep it up. But I'm not talking about sexual aspects here. I'm talking about their management ability. They can't get up the energy or the drive, the intellectual capacity to manage the company right. And then if they do get it up, or when they do get it up, they can't keep it up. They don't believe in themselves. Like, for example, core issues in their identity are at the heart of these fears. And I've had 5 big CEOs on my roster, and with these 5 big CEOs, I accompanied them to their annual meeting when they were addressing their board of directors, or their staff and their board of directors. as well as their clients. And I always bring smelling salts with me because 3 of them have fainted just before they went into the room. And I've had to go in and take the podium and say, well, Mr. So-and-so is delayed a few minutes, and keep the meeting going until the guy appeared, having drank some water and got his equilibrium back. I've actually witnessed that.
Wow.
And that is not just fear of public speaking, that is a combination of fears. That is fears of being judged. How is the board of directors going to judge him? How is the senior management? Or even how is the junior employee going to judge him? And so there's these kind of stresses that are placed on leaders and CEOs require them to be almost superheroes.
Sure.
And, you know, when they go into that role as CEO, they're nowhere nearly prepared for that. But then on the other hand, fear can be a great motivator, David, as you know.
Absolutely, especially physical pain. There are many stories where athletes or other people have had sustained injuries where they're able to, through intense physical therapy and determination, achieve a level that was not thought to be even physically possible, where doctors told them they'd never be able to do something like walk again. And then they're actually able to do it and overcome that. And more specifically for myself, I actually have 2 torn discs in my back. I had an injury that I sustained, and that caused me to have extreme sciatic nerve pain, where I had pain that radiated down my leg into my foot. I would get maybe 3 hours of sleep at night if I was lucky. And I ended up going through a really intense physical therapy program. And through that physical therapy program, even though my back had still hurt, I never quit playing golf because I've always loved golf. But through the physical therapy program, I trained, and I ended up becoming an amateur on the long drive tour. And in 2015, I competed in the World Championships, and I had one of the 10th longest drives in that tournament.
Wow. Yeah, you see, and if you didn't, how shall I say, if you didn't have the back issue, you may not be where you are in golf. You see how one thing leads to another.
Yeah, I mean, I would say pretty much without question, if I didn't have the back injury, I would have never put in the amount of time or effort into training that hard. And I probably would have never kept it up for that amount of time either. We went off on a bit of a tangent there, Mary, but I think one of the most valuable things that you could provide the listeners with today is, I know one of the biggest things that you do with your coaching is to help people gain their confidence back, but not just so they can be more confident, but so that they're able to charge what they're worth and be able to provide the value that they can really provide to others. So what advice could you give to someone that's maybe just starting a business, or they want to get to the next level, or they've found they've been moderately successful in a career, but then have found themselves stagnant?
Well, first of all, about charging what you're worth. To charge $1 million, the transformation you offer has to be priceless to a certain extent. It has to be worth at least double that. Okay, so not everybody has a transformation or a product that's worth $1 million. So that would be the first thing. And I help many people shore their product up, their whatever it is they want to sell, and get $1 million for that. It's not always a one-to-one coaching. It could be somebody going in with a team as a consultant to a company or something like that. But what you need, the most important characteristic you need to charge high net worth individuals high money is confidence in your ability. But it's more than confidence, David. It's a deep knowing that, yes, you are worth this money, that, yes, you can give them the transformation they are looking for. Yes, they will be more than pleased and come back to you again for more after you're done with the first round. I've had 5 people come back for 2 terms with me after the first round. So it's that deep knowing, that deep, it's like a knowing in your soul that you can do this, that you have what it takes.
Now, the next question I have for you is probably a little bit deep, but if someone doesn't have that feeling, it's kind of hard to imagine and wrap your head around. So, I mean, one thing I would suggest would be to pick up the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. I'm sure that you're familiar with that book, Mary, but for someone that's never charged a higher fee for consulting, maybe even into the $1,000 or $10,000 range, not even getting near $1 million. I see a tendency in some of the people that I work with that they believe that it's possible for other people to charge the price, and they see that other people have charged that price. They know that they can provide the value, but they don't think that it's possible for them to charge that price. And how does someone overcome that, and how does someone get that feeling that you're talking about?
It's more than reading a book. Reading is great because reading you get great ideas and great perspectives, but at the end of the day, it's up to you. And if you feel that you're not worthy of this money, or that there's something stopping you from charging this money, then you start at a smaller scale. Okay, so you might not be ready to charge $1 million, but you might be ready to charge $100,000. And when you get your $100,000 client, that will give you, it's experience that counts, David. Of course, you must read. You must have the knowledge. You must be able to offer the transformation. But it's really, at a deep level, it's really the experience of doing things. Take a child who starts to play tennis, and that child goes to practice every day for an hour with a coach. And after 3 months or 90 days, that child can now play tennis without the coach. He understands the game. And then he goes to the next level. And then by the time he's 15, maybe he's on the world circuit. So it's the same thing with a consultant or a coach. You start with something that's outside of it has to be outside of your comfort level. But it doesn't have to be that far out of your comfort level. And you do that, and then the next client should be more money, and you up the ante, you up your game. You're more qualified now. You're more experienced, and now with each gig, so to speak, you're upping the game, and you become more confident, and you have with the ability and the knowing that yes, you can do this.
I'm glad you made a point to say that, because, it's great to read, but if you pick up a book, you maybe don't only read it one time and don't apply any of the material from it and never go back to it, or, never really try to use any of the tools that the book gave you, then it's almost useless. I mean, sure, the knowledge, but, putting it into application is what really makes the difference.
No, it's the experience, and I think a great analogy is somebody starting out to play tennis or a chess player, who becomes a world-class chess player, or any sports person who becomes world-class. They weren't always world-class. They had to start at the beginning. If you're a football player, I'm sure you got, scrapes and knocks and bumps on the head and one thing or another before you made it to the league you wanted to be in. It's the same with a consultant. It doesn't happen overnight. I wasn't always like this, David. I experienced a huge shift when my daughter died in 2008. When she died, everything had been taken. So I felt enough. Before that, people would tell me, you're not the type of person to do X, Y, and Z. Who do you think you are? Like when I wanted to put my children into elite boarding schools or elite prep schools, my friend said to me, they'll never get in. Who do you think you are? And I just said, watch me. I have never set out to do something and failed. Never. And so every one of us has the ability to do whatever it is with our lives. There's no need to be afraid. I have people who tell me, oh, but I can't call the CEO, make a cold call to him. Of course you can. A bullet is not going to come through the phone lines, and go through your head and kill you. So sometimes it takes tragedy and trauma to help people to shift into that place where they need to be. I helped my husband build a multi-million-dollar venture capital company, and it was going for 20 years successfully. He parlayed $500,000 maybe into 500 million and more. And then one day he came home and said, we're broke, and the money was gone. And I sat in my apartment for 6 months with no electricity. But at the same time, our children stayed in the most illustrious schools in the world. So losing money was bad. I thought losing the money was terrible at the time, to go from that kind of wealth to now not being able to have electricity or even a phone in the house. But that never compared to losing a child. So all of these experiences combined made me the person I am today and helped me to understand that I have power beyond what I even think it is today. Like, I think I have a certain power, but actually it's not just me. Each one of us has power, exponential power. We just have to exercise it and not allow fear get in the way.
It sounds like, Mary, that those two struggles were really what allowed you to break through and get to the next level. But because they were what let you find what most people today would call your why, or the reason behind why you're doing everything. And that's what allowed you to grow your consulting business to the next level.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I would agree with it. It was those two struggles combined that was the why.
Wow, you've definitely had your fair share of adversity there, and I think you've gave us some fantastic insights. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with on an end note?
I love Nike's, what would you call it, logo. It's not a mantra. Just do it. You've got to start someplace. And if you can't do it, or you don't know how to do it, or you don't have the approach, you can always call me and I'll give you the approach and perspective. It's all about doing it. Start where you are don't start from where you are. Start from the next level up from where you are. If you don't know how to do it, it's Sir Richard Branson says it, but actually it was, I believe it was Abraham Lincoln who said it first. When somebody presents you with an amazing opportunity and you don't have a clue where to start or how to start, you tell them, yes, I can do that. And then you go and find out how to do it. And that is the MO that I operate from every single time.
I love what you've said there. Just do it. If you don't know how, figure it out. If anyone wants to reach out to you, Mary, what's the best way that they could get in contact with you?
Well, they can call me at 917-254-3712, or they can email me at mary@maryshakun.com.
Well, Mary, it was absolutely fantastic to have you on the podcast today. Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to do this interview with you, and hopefully we'll have you on the show again at some point in the future.
Oh, you're very welcome, David, and have a wonderful day.